Hello everyone. Welcome back to our channel. Today I will tell you a very inspiring true-to-life story. This story is written in simple English so you can practice listening, improve your vocabulary, and also feel motivated. The story's title is The Story of David Miller, From Poverty to a Successful Writer. It is about a boy who grew up in a poor family, who struggled, who failed many times, but who never gave up on his dream of becoming a writer. Let's begin. David Miller was born in a very small town. His family was poor, so poor that sometimes they did not have enough food to eat. His father worked as a factory laborer, and his mother cleaned houses to earn some money. Life was hard. From a very young age, David understood that life was not easy. He often wore old clothes that were given by neighbors. His shoes had holes. But there was one thing in his life that made him happy: stories. When David was a child, his mother sometimes told him bedtime stories, but later she became too tired after work. So David started reading old books that people had thrown away. He found them near garbage bins, in secondhand shops, and sometimes in libraries where they gave away damaged books. He loved reading more than anything else. At school, David was not the best student in math or science, but in English class, he was different. He always wrote the longest essays. His teacher once said to him, "David, you have a gift. You can make people feel something with your words. Don't lose that gift." David smiled, but he also knew the truth. His family was too poor to let him dream of becoming a writer. Writers needed time, money, and education. David had none of those. When David turned 14, his father lost his job. The factory closed, and the family had no income. David left school to help his family. He started working in a small grocery store. He carried heavy boxes, cleaned floors, and earned very little money. Every evening after finishing work, David sat under a streetlight with a notebook. He could not afford electricity at home, so the streetlight became his study lamp. He wrote short stories about everything he saw during the day: the old woman buying bread, the children playing in the street, the man shouting at his workers. Sometimes people laughed at him. "Why do you waste your time writing?" his co-workers asked. "You will never become a writer. Writers are rich people, educated people. You are just a poor boy." David did not answer them. He kept writing. Deep inside, he knew words were his only escape, his only chance for a better future. When David was 18, he decided to send one of his stories to a small magazine in the city. He saved money for weeks to buy stamps and send the letter. He waited with excitement. After 2 months, he finally received a reply. It was a rejection letter. The editor wrote, "Your story is interesting, but not good enough for publication. Keep trying." David felt his heart break. For days, he could not write. He thought maybe everyone was right. Maybe he was wasting his time. But then he remembered his teacher's words: "Don't lose that gift." He took his notebook again and began writing. He promised himself, "I will try again. No matter how many times I fail, I will not stop." The next years of David's life were full of hard work. He worked in different places, in restaurants washing dishes, in construction carrying bricks, and even as a night guard. He was always tired, but he never stopped writing. Sometimes he wrote on napkins during his lunch break. Sometimes he wrote on the back of old receipts. His notebooks were full of unfinished stories, dreams, and characters. At night, when everyone slept, David stayed awake. He read books borrowed from the library and studied how great writers wrote. He learned by himself. He analyzed stories, copied sentences, and practiced every day. His friends went out, had fun, and laughed. David stayed home with his pen and notebook. Many people thought he was strange. But David believed that every page he wrote was a step toward his dream. At the age of 25, David finally received good news. A small online magazine accepted one of his stories. They did not pay him money, but they published his work. For the first time, David saw his name printed under a story. He was so happy that he cried. He showed the magazine to his mother, who smiled with tears in her eyes. "You see, David," she said softly, "your words are worth something. Don't stop." This small success gave David hope. He continued writing and sending his stories to more magazines. For every one acceptance, he received 10 rejections. But he kept going. When David turned 30, tragedy struck. His father became very sick, and the family needed money for hospital bills. David worked double shifts, day and night, to pay for the treatment. He had no time to write. One night, when he returned home exhausted, he looked at his dusty notebooks. He whispered to himself, "Maybe it's time to give up. Maybe I will never become a writer." He almost threw his notebooks away, but then he remembered the boy sitting under the streetlight years ago, dreaming of becoming a writer. He remembered the promise he had made to himself. So even in those dark days, he tried to write a few lines before sleeping. Sometimes only 2 sentences, sometimes only 1 paragraph. But he wrote, because writing was not just his dream, it was his life. At the age of 34, something unexpected happened. David finished a long story based on his childhood, the poverty, the struggles, the dreams, the failures. He sent it to a publishing house. Months later, he received a call. "Mr. Miller," the editor said, "we read your story. We believe it has great potential. We would like to publish it as a book." David could not believe his ears. His hands were shaking. For years, he had dreamed of this moment, and now it was real. The book was published. It was not a bestseller at first, but slowly, people began to read it. They connected with the story of a poor boy who never gave up. They saw themselves in David's struggles. The book was translated into different languages. David started receiving letters from readers around the world. With one book, David's life began to change. He was invited to schools, universities, and conferences to speak about his journey. He always told young people the same thing: don't give up. If you have a dream, fight for it. Even if the world laughs at you, even if you fail 100 times, don't stop. He wrote more books. Some were novels, some were collections of short stories. Each book carried a piece of his own life, his pain, his hope, and with each book, his reputation grew. David became a successful writer. He was not only rich in money, but rich in respect and love from his readers. Even after success, David never forgot his past. He remembered the poor boy under the streetlight. So, he created a foundation to help young writers from poor families. He donated books, gave scholarships, and organized free writing workshops. He told those young writers, "You don't need to be rich to write. You only need courage, persistence, and love for words." David's story became an inspiration not only for writers, but for anyone who had a dream. Today, David Miller is a well-known author. But when people ask him about his success, he always smiles and says, "My success is not measured by money or fame. My success is that I never gave up. I kept writing, even when nobody believed in me." And that, dear friends, is the story of David Miller, the poor boy who became a successful writer. Remember, your dream may be difficult. You may fail many times. But if you believe in yourself and keep working, you can write your own story of success. Thank you for listening. See you in the next story.